So, you are back. Now, we want to define how do we construct this formal language, how do we know which sentences are in the language and which are not in the language. So, we construct a set of sentences as follows, that we start by saying that these are the set of atomic sentences which are there in the language essentially. And we will see that different languages have a different set of different ways of defining the set of atomic or primitive sentences. And then we use this notion of a logical connective, which is central to logic, to construct compound sentences. How do you combine two sentences? Or in the language of formal languages, what are the well formed formulas? So, well formed formulas will be the sentences of our language. We will see that given any set of primitive sentences and given a set of logical connectives, the set of sentences in the language is infinite, it is unbounded. You can keep adding a new sentence essentially. What do we mean by a compound sentence? Basically, a sentence which connects two sentences in some way essentially. So, we can say uh, the earth is round and the moon is beautiful. So, there are two sentences. One sentence is the earth is round, the other sentence is the moon is beautiful, and this is a compound sentence because we have used an and that is the basic idea behind logical connectives. So, there are different kinds of connectives, and is just one of them. So, what are the kind of connectives that we can use to produce new sentences? So, remember, we start off with a set of atomic sentences and then we use a set of logical connectives to construct new sentences. In this way, we define the formal language, which is the language that we are talking about. So, a logical connective takes one or more sentences as input and constructs a new sentence. All logic languages have some common set of connectives. So, all classical logics have these connectives that we are going to talk about in a moment. I am sure most of you are familiar with this. More expressive languages may have more connectives. So, one is a unary connective. There are two unary connectives. One is the identity, but we are not so much interested in the identity. The more interesting one is this sign, this symbol, which sometimes people use this, sometimes people use this, but we will use this symbol. And it says that if you give me any sentence as input, if alpha is a sentence, then so is this not alpha. So, we read this as not alpha. If alpha is a sentence, then so is not alpha. We often use brackets to enclose sentences, just to make sure as to what does the connective apply to. But we can also leave it out when it is clear from the context that this is what we are talking about. So, we will use this symbol for not, and we will often leave out the brackets. Then there is a set of binary connectives, which take two sentences as input, for example, alpha and beta, and it constructs a new sentence which we write as this. So, what is the connective? The connective is this inverted V like symbol, which is called AND in the language of logic. So, AND is a connective, and you give me two sentences and we will construct a new sentence by saying alpha and beta. Likewise, OR is another connective. The symbol that we use is like a capital B, and if you give alpha and beta as input, it constructs a new sentence called alpha or beta. Another interesting connective is the implies or the implication essentially. There are different symbols that different textbooks would use for this, but we would stick to this one here. If alpha and beta are sentences, then so is alpha implies beta sentence. There are in fact 16 binary connectives, we have just written 3 here. I will encourage you to explore the other connectives. Do we need connectives of higher degree or higher or this thing, which will take 3 sentences and give us a new sentence, 4 sentences and give us a new sentence? Luckily, we do not need that, because it has been shown, for example, that if you use ternary connectives or higher connectives, then whatever you can express with them, you can express by using binary connectives. So, supposing I define the ternary AND, okay, which says that in some sense, if it were to say something like, let us call it T AND, okay, I am just inventing this here. So, TAND, it stands for T AND, which means ternary AND, and what it does is that it takes 3 sentences as input and gives us a new sentence. So, let us say this is a representation of the new sentence also, that it is a ternary AND of alpha, beta and gamma. But as you can see, we can very easily replace this by alpha and beta. So, I have got one sentence, and then I apply AND again to that and get gamma. So, this I can construct this AND of 3 things. The moon is round, the moon is beautiful, the earth is round and the sun is shining. I can say all these 3 things and put together using the binary connective. So, basically we do not need higher order connectives, so which is a bit of a relief, and we can have logics with work only with unary and binary connectives. Of course, when we talked about connectives here, we in our discussion we were already talking about the semantics. And means this, or means this, and so on and so forth. In the formal language, it is just a connective, it is just a symbol which is used to construct a compound symbol. When we say that we are talking about semantics of logical connectives, then we are saying how does the meaning or the truth value of the compound sentence be determined, and that is determined by the definition of the logical connective that we are talking about. So, the semantics of compound sentences is derived from the definition of the logical connectives. Most of you would have studied this, so we will try and go through this somewhat quickly. The logical connectives are defined by what are called as truth tables. We will see a couple of examples, and because we are talking about truth values, we are talking about truth functional semantics here, which is as opposed to the meaning part, which is sometimes called as denotational semantics. What does it denote? So, the truth table on the left that we are seeing here is for the logical NOT. So, not surprisingly, not alpha is true when alpha is false, and not alpha is false when alpha is true. So, you can see the connection between the left hand side and the right hand side. When alpha is true, not alpha is false. When alpha is false, not alpha is true. So, this is a truth table. It tells us that you tell me the truth value of alpha and I will tell you the truth value of not alpha. I am sure most of you are familiar with this. The right hand side is the truth table for the logical and as expected, it says that both the statements have to be true, then I will say that the compound statement alpha and beta is true. So, you can see that here, that if alpha is true, if beta is true, then I will say alpha and beta is true. But in all the other 3 cases, I am saying that alpha and beta is false, and that is our common sense meaning of the word and. We are just capturing it as a formal system here. So, here are some common connectives in some random order being drawn here. Alpha implies beta, is something that logic uses a lot, and I am sure you are familiar with the truth tables for that. Alpha implies beta is true for most cases except for one case where alpha is true and beta is false, then alpha implies beta is false. An interesting connective is the XOR connective, and XOR is what we in common sense language mean by OR. So, if it says that I will go for a movie or I will go for a theater or a music performance, then it basically the XOR sense essentially. When we in language say OR, we often mean XOR, which means either alpha is true or beta is true, but not both essentially. And the table for XOR shows that look at the cases when alpha, okay, so there is an error here, this should be XOR. The symbol for XOR is this thing. So, XOR is true when only one of the constituents is true. So, when beta is true or when alpha is true and when the other thing is false essentially. When both are true, then it is false, as you can see. When both are false, also it is false. So, XOR is the standard sense that we often use in natural language when talk about logic. The logical OR is a little bit different from XOR, that these two middle cases are true like in XOR, but this case is also true, which means alpha is true or beta is true, and that is the logical OR. Logical OR says that as long as one of them is true, this alpha and beta is true. XOR is what we mean by saying that either one is true or the other is true essentially. This NOR, there is an error here. We will come back to this symbol later. So, it is an arrow symbol that we use. I will just check in what is the correct one and then I will correct it here. Another interesting connective is the equivalence relation, which is these 3 lines is a standard symbol that we use, and you can see that it is exactly the opposite of XOR. The equivalence is true in these two cases. Okay, here is an error again. This should be true and this should be false. So, the equivalence is true only when either both are true or both are false. In some sense, both are equivalent essentially. So, whenever the XOR is false, equivalence is true, and in some sense it is a negation of XOR essentially. Okay. So, given this set of connectives, so I said that there are 16 logical binary connectives and one unary connective. How do we construct the meaning, the semantics of compound sentences? The semantics of compound sentences derived from the definition of the logical connectives that we have seen, and we have seen that logical connectives are defined using truth tables. We can carry forward this idea of truth table to determine the semantics of compound sentences. So, this is also given by a truth table. The number of rows in the truth table will depend upon the number of input sentences. So, we saw that for the negation there were only 2 rows, for AND, OR and all the binary connectives there were 4 rows, because there are 4 possibilities. So, 2 raised to n the number of rows in the truth table. So, here is a sentence in logic. So, first of all you must convince yourself that this is a sentence in logic. So, alpha and beta are sentences, and therefore, alpha implies beta is a sentence, and also not alpha or beta is a sentence, and therefore, this whole thing is also a sentence. How is the sentence related to the truth values of alpha and beta? We see that first in the first column we have alpha and beta, which is the kind of things given to us, and then the rest of them are derived from the truth tables. So, this is the definition of alpha, the definition of implication, and it tells us that these are the truth values for alpha implies beta. This is a definition of not alpha. So, you can see that whenever alpha is true, not alpha is false, and whenever alpha is false, not alpha is true, and yeah. So, it is true here and false here and here. And then likewise, once we are given not alpha and once we are given beta, we can compute the truth value of this by looking at these two columns. And finally, the sentence that we are interested in, we look at this column and we can look at this column and compute the value of this. And we can say in this example that this sentence is true irrespective of whether alpha is true or beta is true or alpha is false or beta. In all cases, all 4 cases of those values of alpha and beta, this sentence is true. So, this is one of those interesting sentences which is always true. So, the number of rows is of course as I said 2 raised to n. So, here I have constructed just another truth table with 3 variables. So, they are alpha, beta and gamma, and therefore, we have 8 rows as you can see for all combinations of these true false values, and we can in a similar fashion construct. So, we first construct alpha implies beta, and then we construct not delta, and then the OR of these two things here. Okay. So, we can construct the thing and we can see that this false in one case and it is true in the other case. So, in that way you construct any arbitrary logic sentence and we can use the truth table to define the truth value of the compound sentence. So, now let us talk about the notion of entailment here essentially. We are given the truth table of alpha implies beta, which is the symbol that we have been using here. And let us say we are given this as a sentence alpha implies beta as an input in our knowledge base. We say that somebody told us that alpha implies beta is true, which means that if alpha implies beta is given to us, then we are only interested, we are saying upfront that this is true, which means it is not false. So, what is shown in the red square that is not allowed. So, we can actually delete this row from our truth table. We are not interested in that because somebody has told us that alpha implies beta is true. So, those are the only other 3 rows in which it is true. So, we will get this truth table in which this third row from the first table has been deleted and we have only left with 3 tables. Now, somebody tells us that alpha is also true, which means it cannot be false, which means the last 2 rows of this are not required. So, we can delete this row and we can delete this row from there and we are left with only 1 row actually. So, this is the process that we did. We started with the meaning of alpha implies beta, then when somebody said that alpha implies beta is true, then we deleted this row from here, and then when somebody said that alpha is also true, then we deleted these 2 rows from here and we are left with a truth table which has only 1 row, and you can see that in that truth table, which is the final truth table at the bottom, beta is true. It has no other option but to be true. So, beta is necessarily true, and that, as you remember, is the notion of entailment. But supposing instead of telling us that alpha is true, somebody said alpha implies beta is true, and then somebody says that beta is true, that is another this thing. So, when somebody said alpha implies beta is true, as before we deleted this third row from that column, then when somebody said beta is true, we have to delete this last row from the column, because that is where beta is false. So, we are left with now a truth table with 2 rows, and you can see that alpha can be true or alpha can be false. In the first row alpha is true, and in the second row alpha is false, which means alpha is not necessarily true. So, which is what we would say in the language that we are developing, that in the first case alpha implies beta and alpha entail beta, but in the second case alpha implies beta and beta it does not entail alpha. So, this is a notion of entailment which allows us to compute whether a sentence is entailed from a knowledge base. So, we saw 2 cases here. In one case, in both the cases alpha implies beta is given in as part of the knowledge base. In the first case we saw that alpha is given to us, and then we saw that beta is entailed, because beta has no option but to be true in the resulting truth table. In the second case we saw that beta is given to be true, and then we were left with the possibility of both alpha still being true or it being false. So, alpha is not entailed by alpha implies beta and beta, whereas beta is entailed from alpha implies beta and alpha. So, you can see the interestingness of this implication statement, and an implication statement is the most often form of inference that we will see, but you can see that if somebody has given you alpha implies beta, and if they give you alpha, then you can conclude beta, but if they say alpha implies beta and they give you beta, you cannot conclude alpha essentially. So, alpha is, as you can see here, not entailed essentially. So, we use this entailment symbol with a slash sign to say not entailed. Okay. So, we will take another break and we will come back and look at this as a pattern of reasoning. We are interested in those sentences which are entailed, but we also want to look at how we can do that using the syntactic process of finding a proof. So, we will look at this in the next video. So, see you soon.